Hello, this is a basic physics tutorial for UDK May 2011 edition. My name is Barrett Hudson. I'm a student at the Guildhall in cohort 16 and today is June 4th, 2011. To start out with, I've just created a basic hollow box here with some lights that we'll do this tutorial in, and we're ready to get started. The first thing we want to do is navigate to our content browser, or generic browser. Just to show you, you can bring this up by clicking on the Open Content Browser button here. It's the Unreal logo. And there we go. To create a physics object, the first step is to find the static mesh that you want to create that physics object out of. So I know we'll be using a barrel for this, so I'll just type barrel in here, and we get some textures, and there's a static mesh. So next thing you want to do once you've found your static mesh is you want to open it up at Static Mesh Editor. And in here, the reason we come in here is to see if our static mesh has collision. Before something can be turned into a physics object, it has to have a collision bound. If we click this Show Collision box, we'll see that these green lines appear that's displaying its collision volume, and this static mesh does have collision on it. So we're ready to go. We'll close out of this now, and with our selected static mesh selected in the content browser, we can right click in our world, and we want to select this Add Rigid Body. Basically this says to UDK that I want to add a version of this static mesh, but instead of making it a static mesh, I want it to be called what is known as a K-actor. K-actor is a term, and basically what it is it's a static mesh that has physics simulations enabled on it. It's just what UDK calls them. So we will select Add Rigid Body, and we get this barrel in our world, and we can raise it up a little bit so we can see it better, and we're ready to test and see how this behaves. So we will build all. Okay, now that our build is complete, we can go ahead and right click and play from here to test out our barrel. And right off the bat, we'll notice one slight problem is that it doesn't seem to be doing anything when we get into the level. It's just sitting there like a static mesh would, and it's not exactly what we want. It looks a little weird for our physics enabled barrel to be hanging above the ground like that. But let's see what else. If we poke it a little bit with our force gun, we see that it does have physics on it. So must be something else going on there. We can pick up our barrel and kind of throw it around a little bit and poke it, send it flying across the room, and pick it up and fling it. And we've got a basic physics actor in our world now. So that's a good start. Just have a few little issues to work out, and we'll see what we can do about that. The first thing we want to address is that issue of our physics barrel sort of hanging in midair when the level starts. So to fix this, we'll select our barrel in the viewport and press F4 to bring up its properties menu, and we'll have this K actor. You may have to expand it like that to see what's inside it. And if we look at the second option, it says wake on level start. We want to go ahead and check that. What that basically says is that we want to go ahead and start running physics simulations on this object as soon as the level begins. With this unchecked, essentially UDK is going to treat this like a static mesh. It's going to be what is known as asleep until a player or gunfire or something like that comes near it and interacts with it, at which point it will wake up and begin physics simulations. The other properties here under K-actor are damage applies impulse, which is basically just a toggle that allows things like rocket fire or any kind of explosion from that causes damage to also apply force to our physics actor. So we'll go ahead and leave that checked. That is always default enabled. The other option is limit max physics velocity, which is again just a toggle true false. If checked, then you go down here to max physics velocity, and you can set a velocity that you don't want this object to exceed. For the time being, we'll go ahead and leave that off, and we'll close out. The other issue that I want to address is that our barrel seemed pretty light when we were in the world there. We could toss it around very easily, and that doesn't seem very accurate for a metal barrel of its size. So to fix that, we will bring up our static mesh editor again, and in here we see this property called Phys Material. It's under the Body Setup tab, and Phys Material is short for physical material, and basically the way that UDK is calculating the mass of objects is that it takes the volume of the object and multiplies it by a density constant of sorts. And this density constant comes from the physical material. Physical materials also give things like friction properties and dampening properties, but we won't really get into that right now. All we need to know is that to give this object mass, it needs to have a physical material, and right now we have none selected. So to give it a physical material, we can go back to our content browser, and if we start typing in physical material, it'll auto-populate there. We can select physical material, and we see this list of pre-made physical materials. We scroll down, we've got Phys Mat Metal, which is a physical material made from metal objects like our barrel. So we can select that, and with the Phys Mat Metal selected, click back over to our static mesh editor, and we will click this green button on the Phys Material line, and we'll see that that physical material has been applied to this static mesh. So now we will close out of our static mesh editor, and it's always important anytime you edit a static mesh like that, that when you get back into the content browser, you right click on it and select save to make sure those changes get saved. So now we'll go ahead and play our level again and see how those changes have affected it. We'll play from here. You can see that our barrel went ahead and fell to the ground like we'd like it to, so that's good. And we can poke it and send it flying a little bit, and it has a little more weight. Still seems a little lightweight. So now we'll go see what else we can do to give this thing a little bit more mass and make it a little harder to toss around. We open back up our static mesh editor again and look just below where we were editing the physical material. We see a mass scale option. What this basically does is a multiplier applied to the mass of the object. And so right now it's set to 1, which is just the default. And if we increase this number, it will increase the effective mass in-game of our object. So we'll go ahead and replace 1 with 2, effectively doubling the mass of our object. And we will close out of that and select save. And another sort of thing to note here is that because we are making these changes in the static mesh editor, they will apply to all instances of this barrel, not just this particular instance in the world. So just something to keep in mind. Let's test and see how that's changed things. We've got our barrel here. We can push it around a little bit, but it's not flying nearly like it used to. I can roll it pretty easily, but if I try to push it this way, it doesn't really want to go. And if I pick it up, it takes considerable force to get it airborne. So now I've got, what looks like a little bit more full barrel here, and seems to be working pretty nicely. That concludes our basic physics tutorial. We've learned how to take a static mesh and convert it to a K-actor and play with some of its properties to get it behaving the way we like. Thank you very much.